In this video, we will be studying about shift of both in demand and supply. See, in the previous video, we started when there is a single shift in demand, your supply remains constant, and the shift in supply when your demand remains constant. Now, in this video, we will be studying there is a change in both demand and supply. See, the number one comes when your price, when equilibrium price remains unchanged. See, this means when shift in demand is equal to shift in supply. When the proportional shift in demand is the same as in supply, equilibrium price remains unchanged. Suppose the equilibrium price of a good is ₹5 and equilibrium demand and supply is 100 units. Further, suppose that at this price both demand and supply shifts by 10%. Supply increases from 100 units to 110 units. And demand also increases from 100 units to 110 units. It means that at ₹5 per unit, demand and supply are once again equal. If you're given a price of ₹5, your demand is equal to your supply is equal to 100 units. Now, if there is 10% increase in your demand and supply, which means now your demand is equal to your supply is equal to 110. So at ₹5, your demand and supply are again at 100. Now let's see this on the graph. This is your quantity, this is your price. See, this is your demand curve, this is your supply curve, and this was your initial quantity and price. We have taken as ₹5 and 100 units, right? Now, you want your price to remain unchanged, which means your demand and supply have equal effect on their shifts. Your quantity Q2, this is how you make the diagram, but actually what happens first, your demand gets shifts, then your supply gets shifts, and then you have your equal price. There is equal, parallel and equal shift in your supply and demand. But in exam, how you will make your diagram, you stretch the line of your price and come to the quantity Q2, which means your demand is also increased, your price is also increased. Now make the straight demand curve with this price D1, right? Now make the straight supply curve with this point in mind. Right? So this was your equilibrium, initial equilibrium. Now if your demand and supply have increased with the same proportion, then your price remains unchanged and you are at the equilibrium E1. See, your price is unchanged. I do not have pencil and scale. This is the reason my gap of supply and demand is not very accurate, but you will get an accurate gap when you draw with the pencil and scale and with equal scale margin. So when your price remain unchanged is a situation when your demand and your supply increases or decreases. Both will either increase or both will either decrease. with the same proportion, with the same level. Now, when your equilibrium price rises, see, when your change in demand is greater than your change in supply, then you have the situation where your price rises. Right? Let's see it on the graph. X, O, Y. This is your quantity. This is your price. Right? Now, this is your demand curve. This is your supply curve. This is your quantity. This is your price. Now you want your price to increase. The change in your demand will be more. The demand curve has shifted more from DD to D1, right? Now it's supply curve. Increase in the supply curve is comparatively less. There is increase in the supply, but it is comparatively less than demand. See, the change in the demand is this much, but your change in supply is only this much. So this will rise the price to P1. Your quantity will rise, obviously, when your demand is equal to supply is equal to your quantity Q, and when your D1 is equal to S1 is equal to Q1. And at this price your price was P, at this your price is P1. So when your change in demand, let's say your supply changes 10%, but your demand changes by 30%, then it is a situation when your equilibrium price rises. When your equilibrium price falls is your third situation. So when your change in demand is less than your change in supply, means your demand increases by 10%, whereas your supply increases by 30%. We can see again on the graph. This is your initial demand, DD. This is your initial supply, SS. This was your quantity. This was your price. Now, your demand curve, let's say, shifted to this much, increase. D1, D1. But there is larger change in your supply, S1, S1. The supply has changed more than the demand. So the increase in supply is more than the increase in demand. So this is your quantity Q1, and this ultimately reduces the equilibrium price from P to P1. Please download our Scholars Learning app and enjoy the learning experience with us.